Hi guys, this is Brad Lincoln from Pathway to Oz, and today we're going to do a little bit of a dive into what we get asked a lot. And the simple question is, how much do I need to start? How much money do I need to start with a student visa? Okay, now it's a very loaded question. There are so many variables within that answer, and it is such a tricky one to just say, oh yeah, $5,000. That's all you're going to need, you'll be fine. Okay, so it doesn't work like that at all. So it's going to depend on what it is you're looking to study, where you're looking to study. Is it just you? Are you bringing dependents with you? All that sort of stuff. I mean, there's just so many factors. So I thought the simplest way to do this and to get the point across and help you guys get a bit of an idea of what those base dollar figures you may need to get started with studying in Australia are, is give you three separate scenarios. Okay, so scenario one, we're going to have a student who is looking to come out and study English. Scenario number two, we've got a student who is looking to study a trade course. And scenario number three, we've got a student who is looking to study a bachelor or maybe a master's style program. Okay, so these are the most common scenarios that I've been able to come up with just looking at my research and knowing the clients I deal with. So let's just kick things straight off with English. Okay, so the English process, it's the first point to start at is where you want to do your study. Now that might seem a bit strange, but there is a reason for this, okay? Because when you're doing your research on English courses, it can be so confusing for the simple reason that just about every single English school in Australia promotes their courses as a per week price, okay? And the reason for this is because no student's the same really when it comes to studying English. Someone might want to get an IELTS 7, someone might only want to get an IELTS 4, someone might need only a 5.5 to go into their next course of study. So everyone's sort of end goal with English is slightly different, and the point they're starting at is also different, okay? So you may need 20 weeks general English classes, your friend may only need 10, just because you're starting at slightly different levels and may have slightly different areas of knowledge in the area, okay? So the first step, what I would do is work out in what part of Australia you want to do your study, okay? Once we've done that, we'll then narrow down the schools based on what your budget is. And start looking at those per week prices, which can range. Good special time anywhere from $180 a week. Some schools go right through to $300, $320 a week. So quite a big difference in price there, okay? Once we've got that worked out, the next step is sending you off the school you've selected's in-house English test. Okay, now this is usually a pretty easy, just like PDF form. You complete it to the best of your ability, you send it back, we then send it to the school for grading. Okay, they'll then say, look, if the student is looking to go into higher education, we recommend that they're going to need at least 25 weeks of general English. So say 6 months. If a student may only need 10 weeks, if they're going into vocational to get them up to the level that's required. Okay, so this is very important for working out your budget, because there's no point in enrolling in a 6-month English course if you only need to study for 5 or 10 weeks just to boost your confidence levels and conversational skills, okay? So in this scenario, we're looking at a student who needs to study English for 6 months, all right? And we're going to be working off sort of an average price of say $200 per week, okay? Payment to the college, your deposit, now this is where it's a little bit different to the other institutions as well, okay, is that most English schools, if you are studying for under 6 months, they won't have a payment plan available for you for this course. You generally will have to pay that full 6 months up front. If you are studying for over 6 months, they usually are a little bit more flexible in this, where they would say, just say for example, you're studying for 30 weeks, you pay the first 15 weeks up front, 15 weeks into your course, you then pay the remainder of those course fees. Okay, but for this scenario, it's full course fees up front because it's 6 months, so just under the threshold or the threshold. So the payment to the college would be $5,200, your student visa would be $650, and your health insurance for a course of that duration would be around $400 to $500 depending on the provider. So from start to finish, from organising the course, getting everything done and getting your visa lodged, you're going to be needing to spend about $6,300 for that 6-month English course. But once you're here, everything's paid for, you're not having to pay for anything else, you can start work, you can learn your course and figure out what your next steps in Australia are. Next up, we have the vocational trade sector. Okay, now the vocational sector, unlike the English, is built off payment plans and lower deposits and all that sort of thing, because that's sort of their competition. you know what I mean? That's how schools compete with each other, by offering more flexibility to international students. So with this one, we're going to base it off a 2-year trade course, okay? Which obviously, if you follow our stuff, this is by far our most popular option for international students. So to go over the upfront cost of that, just to touch on, with the deposits for vocational, it can range anywhere from as little as $500 for your course right through to say $3,000, depending on where you want to study. Some schools can charge a bit more for offshore applications because they feel it makes the visa application a bit stronger. I don't know if I always agree with that personally. I've seen students get visas who have paid very low deposits. I've seen student visas being refused who have paid very high deposits. So I'm not sort of too sure about that way of thinking, but some schools charge whatever they want in terms of deposits, but on average, I feel it's around $500 to $3,000. Now, let's look at the scenario. So your deposit to the college is only $1,000. Your student visa is $650. For a 2-year trade course, your health insurance should be anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200. And so your total startup fee for studying a trade course in Australia is only around $2,750. So a very affordable cost, especially when you're comparing it to English, even though English seems like a much more basic course than your trade programs, but requires a lot more upfront than your big long trade courses do. So if you are at that English level and you want to get into a trade, maybe don't waste time doing sort of stuff around courses first, when you could save yourself a lot of money by jumping straight into the vet sector or the trade sector, whichever you sort of feel more inclined towards. And now finally guys, we're going to look at the higher education sector, so masters, bachelor programs, things of that nature. Okay, now this is so tricky to give you a range when it comes to the deposit structure, just because anything in higher ed, there is just so many variables. University prices can be just so astronomically different to the same course offered at another university. The location, the state you're in, whether you're applying on or offshore here in Australia, they're pretty big differences in all of this, and all can play a big factor in the deposit you put down. But on average, just say for example a popular master's program like a Master of IT or a Master's of Business Administration that goes for 2 years, on average I see most students are paying around the $7,000 to $10,000 mark. To be precise, I've got one school that I did just the other day, which was the deposit was $9,700. So we probably use that as the example because it's fresh in my mind is the only reason. But basically, if you're looking to do this type of course, and again, we'll go off a 2-year duration because that's the basic duration of most master's programs. If you're looking at a 4-year bachelor, the only difference will be with the health insurance, just basically times that number by 2 and then get your price difference for a bachelor program. You deposit at the college, $9,700. Your student visa would be $650, and your overseas student healthcare cover for a 2-year program would be around $1,100. So let's say you're looking at a total of around $11,450 to kick things off with a master's or maybe even a bachelor program. Now guys, please be aware, and I did stress it a few times over the course of this video, that this is just a broad guide and there are so many variables that come into place when it comes to quoting these numbers, but this is just to give you a rough idea, okay, and hopefully make you realise that things may not always be as expensive as they seem, especially if you're looking at the vocational and trade sector, and there are a lot of sort of variables there that can increase or even decrease your price depending on what it is you want to do. But the best thing you can do for yourself is plan ahead, and I sound like a broken record when I say this, I say it in just about every video. Planning is key, speaking to the right people to make sure your plan is going to get you from point A to point B where you want to be. So as always, if you do have any questions or want to speak to the team at Pathway Tours about your best options, never hesitate to contact us anytime. Thanks.